Her fingers brushed the diamond on her left hand as she walked toward the front doors. Inside, everything glowed: gold fixtures, crystal chandeliers, the kind of excess only old money could dress in subtlety. Staff moved like clockwork. A string quartet played something elegant in the distance. Guests drank and murmured in corridors of art. And still, she couldn't find Griffin. Then she heard it: laughter, familiar, male, followed by a softer, feminine hum. Celeste followed it like instinct down the east wing, past the portraits, past the scent of expensive perfume and lies. The master suite door was ajar. She pushed. "Hello, my wonderful and marvelous family. Welcome to Love and Twilight, a place where hearts find comfort and dreams come alive beneath the colors of the evening sky. Here, every moment is a story waiting to be told. Stories of love, hope, and the quiet beauty that lingers when the day gently surrenders to night. Twilight has always been a symbol of transition, a soft pause between light and darkness. In that tender space, we discover the magic of connection, where love is not just a word, but a feeling that glows even in the quietest corners of our lives. This channel is created for those who believe in the power of love, in the healing touch of kindness, and in the beauty of little moments that make life extraordinary. As you join this journey, think of Love and Twilight as your safe haven, a place to breathe, to feel and to remember that love exists in every heartbeat, every glance, every sunset. Together, we will explore stories that inspire, reflections that heal, and a gentle light that guides us all. So, welcome home. Here, love will always meet you, and Twilight will always remind you that beauty never fades. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to your families and friends, as this makes this family keep growing stronger. Let's begin. And there he was. Griffin, shirt half open, his fingers tangled in waves of auburn hair. On their bed, with her cousin, Celeste stood in the doorway, unblinking. Griffin didn't notice at first. He was too busy whispering into the neck of the woman who once helped Celeste choose her wedding gown. The chandelier's light caught the diamond on Celeste's hand again. But this time, it mocked her. When Griffin saw her, he scrambled upright. "Celeste, wait, it's not what it looks like." She said nothing, just watched him. Then her cousin, then the sheets. Ivory, now stained red with lipstick and betrayal. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything, didn't even cry. She simply turned around, walked barefoot out into the rain, her heels discarded somewhere between dignity and heartbreak. 10 blocks later, soaked through and mascara trailing like ghost paint, Celeste stopped. A flickering red neon sign read, "The Marries House." It smelled like aged bourbon, memory, and a kind of silence that didn't ask questions. She stepped inside. The world quieted. Jazz floated in the air like smoke. The lighting was dim, comfortable, unjudging. She slid onto a bar stool, dress clinging to her legs like a second skin. The bartender raised an eyebrow. "Manhattan, neat, no cherry," she said. The glass was cold. The burn was welcome. A few sips in, a voice settled beside her like silk and smoke. "You don't strike me as the kind of woman who runs." She turned. The man was calm in a dangerous way. Jet black suit, the top buttons of his shirt undone, and the kind of gaze that felt like it peeled layers off you without permission. Celeste met his eyes. "I don't usually," she said, "but tonight I made an exception." He offered a small smile. "Bad night?" "The worst," she murmured, "but maybe also the best." He signaled the bartender, "Whatever she's having, and a plate of fries, because sadness should never go hungry." She huffed something like a laugh. "You always play savior to wet strangers in bars?" "Only when they wear heartbreak like a weapon," he said. His name was Roman. She learned that 2 drinks later. By the time the band shifted to something slower and the fries had been picked at, she found herself telling him the whole story. Griffin, the cousin, the mockery of everything she'd built. Roman listened, not like a therapist, not like a predator, but like someone who understood what it meant to be undone by people you trusted. When she finished, her voice was quiet. "I can't go back. I have nowhere now." Roman didn't flinch, didn't ask questions. He simply sipped his drink, then leaned in. "Marry me. Tonight." Celeste blinked. "What?" "I'm serious," he said. "You need a way out. I can give you one." She laughed, raw and hoarse. "You're insane." "Maybe, he replied. But I'm also offering you something real. No strings, no games, just a door. You decide whether to walk through it. Celeste stared at him, the glass in her hand now forgotten. It was madness. But so was watching the man you loved make a mockery of you on the night meant to change your life. And maybe this was the change. She exhaled. You have a car? Roman smiled. I have a driver, and a courthouse that owes me a favor. The drive was silent at first. Celeste sat in the back seat of the black SUV, her wet hair leaving cold trails on the leather. Roman sat beside her, watching the city roll by in reflections, not once looking at his phone. Still time to change your mind, he said finally. She turned toward him, surprised by the gentleness in his tone. And go where? Roman didn't answer. He didn't need to. I'm not drunk, she added. Just so you know. He smiled faintly. Neither am I. The driver pulled up to an old courthouse. It wasn't grand, just solid, like it had seen too many stories to care anymore. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened. Roman stepped out first and held the door open for her, not like a man being chivalrous, but like one honoring a pact. Inside, the air smelled of paper, ink, and something ancient. A night clerk looked up and blinked at them. You again? The clerk asked Roman, pushing up her glasses. Roman nodded once. We need a license. Fast. Celeste half expected someone to stop them, to remind her this was insane, that you don't marry a man whose last name you only just learned. But no one did, and maybe that's why she followed through. The vows were spoken in a cold hallway under a flickering light bulb. No flowers, no music, no audience, just a witness with a clipboard and the sound of a pen dragging across paper. Do you, Celeste Moreau, take this man, Roman Blackwood, as your lawfully wedded husband? She looked at him. Roman didn't smile. He just held her gaze like gravity. I do, she whispered. And just like that, her life split in two. Outside the courthouse, the city pulsed with a kind of hush that only midnight brings. Roman slid into the back seat first this time, and when she followed, his hand found hers. Not forceful, not fleeting, just warm. You okay? He asked. She exhaled. I don't even know what that means anymore. He didn't press. Instead, he reached into the seat pocket and pulled out a folded handkerchief, pressed it gently into her hand. Don't keep your sadness on your face, he murmured. It doesn't suit you. Celeste laughed quietly. Are you always this collected? No, he said. I just know what it's like to lose control, and how much it costs to get it back. The driver made a sharp turn, and a few minutes later, the car rolled up to a towering building along the river. Black steel, reflective windows, no name on the outside, just luxury disguised as silence. Roman led her into a private elevator. It shot upward with a hum. Celeste's reflection stared back at her from mirrored walls, hair damp, mascara faded, but eyes wide and awake. Last chance, Roman said. Stop giving me exits, she replied. You're the one who offered the door. I walked through it. Don't second guess it now. The corner of his mouth curved. When the elevator doors opened, it was like stepping into another world. The penthouse was art and shadow, glass and light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Mississippi River, shimmering like spilled secrets. Sculptures dotted corners. Books, lined walls. The place smelled of cedar wood, midnight, and something darker, something male. Celeste stepped forward. Her fingers brushed the smooth edge of a marble table. Everything here screamed control, precision, power. Nice place, she said. It's just space, Roman replied. It only means something when someone's in it. He poured 2 drinks, nothing elaborate this time. Just neat whiskey in heavy-bottomed glasses. She took hers and walked toward the windows. You always live this, intensely. Roman joined her at the glass. I live without apology. There's a difference. Celeste turned to him. Why me? His gaze didn't flinch. Because you had nothing to lose. And I needed something real. That's not love. It's honesty. The moment pulsed between them like a tightrope stretched too far. She tilted her head. Are you going to kiss me again? I wasn't sure if I should. Celeste stepped closer. You married me without a kiss. That's a little disappointing. Roman set down his glass. And then he kissed her. This time, it wasn't frantic or impulsive. It was deliberate. controlled, hot and patient. His hands didn't roam, yet. His lips simply learned hers. Slow pressure, a tease of dominance. The kind of kiss that tells you a man's not here to take, he's here to own. When they pulled apart, she was breathless. "I should feel guilty," she whispered. "But I don't." "Good," he replied, "because I don't want to be your mistake." They stood like that, barely inches between them, the city behind them, and the night stretching out like permission. Then Roman reached for her hand again. "Come on," he said softly. "To where?" "To whatever comes next." The silence in the room had shifted. It wasn't the kind of silence that begged for words. It was the kind that waited for movement. Roman stepped away from the window and walked toward the bedroom hallway. "Come," he said again. Celeste hesitated for just a second, then followed. The bedroom was shadowed by dim lights spilling from the hallway. No velvet, no drama, just clean lines, silk sheets, and the soft hum of the city beyond the glass. Roman leaned against the doorframe, watching her take in the space. She was still soaked, hair dripping down her spine, the hem of her dress clinging to her knees. "You can take the guest room," he said, voice calm. Celeste raised an eyebrow. "I thought this was a marriage." "It is," Roman replied, "but I'm not going to touch you until you ask me to." That stopped her. He wasn't forcing anything. Not his presence, not his touch, not even his desire. She exhaled slowly, eyes scanning the edge of the bed, the way the sheets seemed. Too perfect, like they'd never been used for anything as messy as passion. "So this isn't a game for you?" she asked. Roman stepped closer. "I don't play with people." Celeste met his gaze. "I said yes tonight because I didn't want to be a victim. Not again. Not ever." He nodded once. "Then don't be. Be whoever you want now." His hands stayed by his sides, relaxed. No hunger in his eyes, just intent. Celeste looked down at her soaked dress. "I need something dry." Roman turned without a word and stepped into a walk-in closet. Moments later, he handed her a white shirt and a pair of soft gray lounge pants. She took them, brushing his fingers. Electricity passed through the contact, sharp, undeniable. "Bathroom?" she asked. "Through that door," he said, gesturing. She peeled off the wet fabric slowly in the privacy of the bathroom. Her skin was marked with goosebumps, not just from cold, but from adrenaline still lingering. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror, eyeliner smudged, lips bruised from that one kiss, cheeks still flushed. She slipped into his clothes. The shirt was too big, the scent of him etched into every thread, clean, warm, expensive. When she stepped out, Roman was on the balcony now, a glass of something dark in his hand. She joined him, without a word. The wind tugged gently at her damp hair. Below, the city moved, oblivious. "You really would have let me sleep alone?" she asked. Roman didn't turn. "Yes." Celeste studied him. His stillness, the way his jaw tightened slightly, like he was forcing control. "But you didn't want to." "I wanted you to choose," he replied. "Not to be taken." The distinction hit her somewhere she wasn't ready for. She stepped closer until they were shoulder to shoulder. "I didn't say thank you," she said. "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to." He finally turned to her, their faces just inches apart. "I should be terrified," she whispered. "Are you?" "No." His eyes darkened. "Why not?" "Because for the first time in a long time I feel seen." Roman set down the glass and turned fully to her. One hand rose, fingers brushing her cheek. "No more lies," he said. "No more pretending," she echoed. They stood like that, wordless, breathing the same air, sharing the same silence. Then Roman leaned in, not fast, not hesitant, just sure. Their mouths met again, this time slower, more layered, not desperate, not innocent. She kissed him back with the kind of hunger that came from being ignored for too long. Her fingers found the edge of his collar, tugging lightly. He groaned softly against her lips. "You sure?" She nodded. "Yes." Roman stepped back, took her hand, and led her to the bed. No more permission needed. He undressed her with reverence, not rush. Fingers sliding over her hips, her shoulders, her back. Each movement deliberate. Celeste arched into his touch, the tension in her body, unspooling like thread from a tight knot. When he finally laid her back against the sheets, it wasn't just about lust. It was about claiming space, restoring something stolen. He hovered above her, his lips brushing her collarbone. "Say stop, and I will." "I don't want to," she whispered. "I want to feel something real." He kissed her again, deeper now. Her body responded with need, but it wasn't frantic. It was a slow fire building from the inside out. Roman slid inside her with a groan, burying his face in her neck as their bodies aligned. Celeste wrapped her legs around him, every breath matching his. The world outside the glass vanished. There was only this, only them. He whispered her name, not like a question, but like a promise, and she answered with every moan, every arch of her spine, every grip of her fingers on his back. When release came, it wasn't wild, it was grounding. A return, a rebirth. Later they lay tangled in silence, the sheets damp with sweat, the air thick with the scent of skin and something sacred. Roman brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You didn't have to give me that." Celeste looked up at him. "I didn't give it to you. I gave it to myself." He smiled softly. "You're not what I expected." She traced his collarbone. "Neither are you." They stayed like that, breath sinking again, until sleep claimed them both. But just before her eyes shut, Celeste whispered into the dark, "Thank you for seeing me." Roman's hand found hers under the covers. "I always will." They didn't speak of last night, not at breakfast, not in the elevator, not even when Roman handed her a perfectly folded napkin as she wiped a crumb from her lip. But the silence wasn't awkward. It was understood. They had crossed a line most people never even approached. Nakedness of body, heart, and truth. Celeste thought he'd act different the next morning. He didn't. He was still precise, still composed. Only now, he watched her with a heat behind the eyes that wasn't just attraction, it was ownership. She didn't mind it. By late afternoon, Roman had disappeared into his home office for a conference call. Celeste wandered the penthouse barefoot, still wearing the clothes he'd given her. The fabric smelled like him. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows again, watching the city shift under the sun. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this unafraid, no expectations, no judgment, just stillness, safety. Roman returned 2 hours later, still in a crisp suit but with the top 2 buttons undone. His sleeves were rolled up, forearms inked with veins. "I owe you a wedding," he said. Celeste blinked. "Wasn't that what last night was?" "That was survival. Now we make it legal." She tilted her head. "You're serious?" He handed her a folder. Inside, a marriage license application, already half filled. Celeste raised her brow. "You planned this. I don't offer escape without follow-through. And you're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Back at the courthouse, there was no fanfare. Just a bored clerk, a fingerprint scanner, and 2 chairs too close together. Celeste filled out her section. Name. Birthday. Address, which she scribbled as Roman's penthouse without blinking. No hesitation. When they submitted the form, the clerk narrowed her eyes slightly. "No guess?" she asked. "No," Roman said. "No witnesses?" "I'll cover the fee," he replied, sliding a card across the counter. She shrugged. "Government loves money. Works for me." Roman leaned close to Celeste as they waited. Still not too late. Celeste turned to him. "You really keep giving people exits, don't you? I've learned people stay better when you don't cage them." She stared at him, then said, "I'm not leaving." 10 minutes later, they stood in front of a justice of the peace in a side room that smelled of dust and ink. Roman didn't wear a ring. Neither did she. But there was no mistaking the gravity between them. The officiant looked down at the form. "Roman Blackwood and Celeste Moreau. Is this correct?" "Yes," they said in unison. The officiant flipped the page, then adjusted his tie. "Do you, Roman Blackwood, take this woman to be your legally wedded wife, to honor and protect her in sickness and health, from this day forward?" Roman didn't blink. "I do." The words weren't ceremonial. They were grounded, unshaken. The officiant turned to her. "Do you, Celeste Moreau, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to trust, support, and walk beside him from this day forward?" Celeste looked at Roman. Really looked. She saw the man who offered her shelter without question, who let her cry, rage, and fall apart in silence, who didn't pity her, but saw her. "I do," she whispered. "Then by the authority granted to me by the state," the officiant began. But Celeste was no longer listening. Roman had taken her hand, and for the first time in her life, the grip didn't feel possessive. It felt protective. Afterward, outside the courthouse steps, they paused. The air was lighter now. The clouds had parted just enough to let slants of sunlight kiss the pavement. Roman reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small black velvet box. Celeste blinked. "You brought a ring?" He opened it. Inside, a slender gold band, no stone. Simple. Pure. "I had it made this morning," he said. "I didn't know if you'd say yes." She stared at it, emotion pooling in her throat. "It's beautiful." He took her left hand and slid it on slowly. It fit like it had always belonged there. "You don't have to wear it," he said quietly. "But I want you to know, this is real for me." Celeste looked at him, heart pounding. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, not soft, not hesitant. Just sure. When they pulled apart, she smiled. "I'll wear it." Roman's eyes flickered with something unreadable, something deep. Then he whispered, "Let's go home." The ride back to the penthouse was quiet, but not awkward. Roman sat beside her, fingers lightly brushing her knee. Not possessively, just there, like a question she was allowed to answer whenever she was ready. Celeste glanced down at the band on her ring finger. Thin, light, and yet it felt heavier than anything she'd ever worn. A man she barely knew had just become her husband, and instead of fear, she felt something closer to relief. The elevator doors opened to the same vast space, glass, marble, skyline. But tonight, it didn't feel cold. It felt claimed. Roman held the door open as she stepped in. She noticed the way he watched her walk, like he was memorizing. She kicked off her heels near the entrance, sighing as the cool floor touched her soles. Roman took off his jacket and laid it over the arm of a nearby chair. He loosened his cuffs, then paused. "You hungry?" Celeste shook her head. "I'm not sure what I am." He gave a small nod. "I'll make you something light." "You cook?" "I survive," he replied, disappearing into the kitchen. She followed. It wasn't much, just toast, soft cheese, and honey. But it felt deliberate, personal. Celeste perched on the stool as he plated it. She watched the way his hands moved. Strong, sure. The same hands that had touched her like she was a secret worth protecting. "You always take care of your brides this well?" she asked, half joking. Roman looked up. "There's only ever been one." She blinked. "You've never been married?" He shook his head once. No reason to. Until now. They ate in silence. When she reached for her wine, their fingers touched again. That time, he didn't pull away. Neither did she. After the last sip, Roman stood. He extended his hand, not as an invitation but as a promise. Celeste took it. He led her through the corridor and into the master bedroom. It looked untouched, but that changed the moment the door closed behind them. Roman turned to face her. "You don't owe me anything." Celeste stepped closer. "Neither do you." Their mouths met like magnets, no hesitation this time. Just heat. She pulled at the buttons on his shirt. He let her. When the fabric fell to the floor, she traced her fingers down his chest, learning him. Roman inhaled sharply but didn't stop her. He let her lead, until he didn't. He scooped her up, strong arms sliding under her thighs, and laid her down on the bed like a vow. She stared up at him. "I thought you said we'd wait." He smiled, slow and wicked. "You already asked me with your eyes." She blushed. He kissed the corner of her mouth. "And I'm done pretending I don't want you." Roman stripped her slowly. Every inch revealed wasn't just seen, it was appreciated. His hands were warm against her skin, coaxing her into softness. She arched under him, her body responding to his every touch like it had been waiting for him all along. He took his time. No rush, no urgency, just reverence. When he finally entered her, it wasn't with force, it was with purpose. Their bodies fit like a secret kept too long. Celeste clung to him, not from desperation, but from want. His lips found her neck, her shoulder, her mouth. They moved together, a rhythm born of raw need and something deeper neither could name yet. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets. Her head rested on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Roman's fingers drew lazy circles along her spine. She felt safe, and that terrified her more than anything. "I don't even know where you're from," she said quietly. "Chicago. Grew up in the South Side. Moved here at 25. What do you do?" A pause. I run a few things. Like, he met her eyes. Does it matter right now? She thought about it, then shook her head. Not tonight. He kissed her forehead. They fell asleep, skin to skin. Celeste woke before him. The sun poured through the windows in gold streams. Roman's arm was still wrapped around her waist, firm and protective. She slid out from under him gently, grabbed one of his shirts and padded into the kitchen. She didn't know where anything was, but she didn't care. This was her home now. At least for today. And maybe, just maybe, for longer. She opened the fridge, reached for juice, and poured herself a glass. That's when she saw it, on the counter, a folded note with her name. She picked it up. Celeste, you don't owe me anything. But if you choose to stay, I'll never make you regret it. Or, she smiled, and whispered to herself, I think I already chose. Celeste stopped counting the days after the first week. Because time didn't feel like time inside Roman Blackwood's penthouse, it stretched and folded, like music on repeat but never dull. Each morning brought new rituals, each night an unspoken promise that neither dared name. It wasn't about flowers or declarations. It was the way Roman would bring her coffee the exact way she liked it without ever asking. The way she would wear his shirt and nothing else while reading on his leather armchair. And he wouldn't interrupt. He'd just watch her until she looked up and smiled. Then he'd walk over and kiss her shoulder like he was claiming the moment, not her. Their passion didn't cool. It matured, no longer frantic, no longer reckless. Roman's touch had learned her body the way a musician learns an instrument. Each sigh, each curve, each gasp memorized and replayed with precision. And Celeste? She had grown fluent in him, the way he kissed her temple when he thought she was asleep, the way his muscles tensed just before he admitted something real. She didn't ask questions. He didn't offer history. But the silence between them wasn't empty. It was filled with breath, hands, and understanding. They often ate late. Roman didn't like crowded restaurants. He preferred rooftop dinners where wind tangled her hair and candles flickered under stars. One evening, while sipping wine, she asked, Why don't you ever talk about your past? He looked at her, then away. Because the past doesn't change, he said. Only people do. Celeste didn't press. She just leaned over and kissed his jaw. You can tell me when you're ready. Roman brushed a finger along her knee. Maybe I will. One day, after dinner, they would retreat into long baths that smelled of lavender and citrus. She'd sit between his legs, her back against his chest, his arms around her stomach. Sometimes they'd talk. Other times they'd simply breathe. His hands would trace lazy paths across her thighs. Her head would tilt against his shoulder. It was intimacy without urgency. Then came the restraints. Silk, smooth, crimson. She found them in a drawer in the bedroom one night while looking for a robe. When she brought them out, eyebrow raised, Roman only smiled. I forgot they were there, he said. They're yours if you want them. Celeste twirled the fabric between her fingers. Only if you promise not to hold me unless I ask. Roman's eyes darkened. I don't need silk to tie you to me. She shivered. That night, she let him use them, but not to bind her. He wrapped them around her wrists and let her guide his hands. Her body, the rhythm. And when she finally moaned his name, he leaned down and whispered, I told you. You could lead. Outside the bedroom, life was quieter, but no less significant. Roman took work calls behind closed doors. He always returned different, more guarded, more clipped. Celeste noticed. She also noticed the men in black suits stationed near the elevators, the way the doorman stood straighter when Roman walked through. The respect, the edge. She knew he wasn't normal, but she didn't care. Whatever world he came from, it hadn't turned him cruel. It had made him careful. And maybe that was what she needed most right now, someone who understood danger but never made her feel unsafe. One night, as they lay in bed, Roman traced the curve of her spine with the back of his hand. You still thinking of him? He asked. Ooh. Your ex. Celeste turned onto her side to face him. Not really. Roman's brow lifted. I think I just needed to forgive myself, she said. For staying too long. For believing someone who never really saw me. Roman nodded once. Then, you don't need to forgive yourself anymore. I'm starting to believe that they kissed slowly anymore. I'm starting to believe that they kissed slowly. And when he slid into her, it wasn't lust. It was confirmation. She belonged here. The next morning, she woke up alone. It was the first time he hadn't been beside her. She found a note on the pillow. Meeting. Back by noon. Don't miss me too much. Our Celeste smiled. She threw on a robe and walked to the balcony. The city buzzed below, but up here, everything still felt untouched. She wrapped her arms around herself, heart full, lungs light. Whatever this was, it was no longer pretend. She was no longer a girl running from betrayal. She was a woman who'd made a choice, and for the first time in her life, it felt like the right one. Celeste waited until the steak was nearly gone. Roman had cooked it himself, medium rare, peppered crust with a side of roasted vegetables and black garlic aioli. He claimed he didn't learn from a chef, but from someone who owed him a favor. That should have been her clue. But she didn't bring it up. Yet. She watched him cut, chew, sip from his glass. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It never was with him. But tonight, she needed more than silence. Can I ask you something? She said, placing her fork down. Roman met her gaze. You already are. She tilted her head. What do you do, Roman? His knife paused mid-slice. A heartbeat passed. Another. I told you, he replied, resuming the cut. I run a few things. Businesses? Among other things. Celeste kept her voice steady. That's not really an answer. Roman set his utensils down gently. What are you really asking? I want to know who I married. You married the man who helped you breathe again. Roman leaned back, his eyes studying her now, not annoyed, not angry. Just reading. Are you afraid of me? He asked. No. Then why ask now? Because you let me into your bed. Your home, your world. Her voice softened. But you're still standing behind glass I can't see through. He nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting this moment. Then he stood and walked toward the balcony. She followed him without hesitation. The air was cool, salted by the breeze off the Mississippi. Roman placed his palms on the railing and stared out. When I was 16, my mother died of an overdose, he said. Celeste blinked. She'd been clean for a year. Slipped once. That's all it took. I came home from school and found her on the floor, cold, eyes open. She stepped aside him but didn't touch him. My father was gone before I could even form full sentences. Foster care took me in, but the system teaches you how to survive, not how to live. He paused. By 20, I'd built my first small business. Not legal, not illegal, just strategic. It worked. I expanded. By 25, I was being watched. Watched? He turned to her. Let's just say, when the city owes you, you don't ask for receipts. Her brows drew together. So you're, what, a fixer? Roman gave a short smile. Something like that. I solve problems. I own properties. I move capital. And I keep powerful people clean when they need to be. Celeste's throat tightened. Is it dangerous? Not for you. That's not what I asked. He stepped closer now, cupping her chin. I've done what I had to. I've buried ghosts. I've protected things that didn't deserve protection. But everything I do now is about preserving what's mine. And I'm yours now? Yes, he said simply. If you want to be. She pulled away slightly, not to retreat, but to breathe. Why me, Roman? He didn't hesitate. Because you didn't ask for anything when I gave you everything. She blinked, taken aback. You were drowning, and instead of reaching for air, you sank. You let go of everything. That's the kind of woman who rebuilds herself. That's the kind of woman who doesn't pretend. Celeste swallowed hard. His words didn't feel rehearsed. They felt carved from truth. Okay, she said quietly. But I need to know, if I stay, will this life touch me? He stepped in again, slower this time. No one touches what belongs to me. And I will never let anything close to you that you don't allow. A beat of silence passed. Then don't hide from me, she whispered. Roman's hand slid into her hair. Then don't run when it gets dark. Their lips met again, not hungry but binding. Later, inside the bedroom, he laid her down like she was both weapon and wound. His hands mapped her all over again, but this time she didn't close her eyes. She stared at him, took him in, let him take her without shame. When she came undone beneath him, she cried out his name, not in fear, not in confusion, but in claim. Afterward, they stayed wrapped in each other, the sheets tangled around their legs. Roman exhaled into the crook of her neck. You're the first person to ask and not walk away. Celeste stroked his hair. That's because I know what it feels like to be left behind. He kissed her shoulder. I'll never do that, she whispered. Then don't ever make me ask who you are again. Just show me, every day. Roman pulled her tighter against his chest. I will. Celeste woke to silence. No hum of conversation, no rustle of sheets beside her, just the soft echo of her own breath. She stretched, limbs heavy with satisfaction, and noticed the envelope tucked on the pillow next to her head. Her name was written across the front in Roman script, elegant, sharp. She sat up, heart kicking once. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Anticipation laced with confusion. She opened it. Inside was a document, a deed. Her name was printed across the top in bold font, Celeste Moreau Blackwood. The property listed, a fully furnished brownstone in the Garden District. Prime location, private entrance, backyard, no mortgage, no lease. Just hers. Underneath the deed, a handwritten note. If you ever need to run again, run here. But I hope you won't. R. Her fingers trembled as she reread it. Not because of the gift, but because of what it meant. He wasn't asking her to stay. He was giving her the freedom to leave, and still loving her through it. Roman appeared in the doorway minutes later, 2 mugs in hand. He saw the open envelope in her lap and didn't say a word. Just walked to the edge of the bed and handed her the coffee. Celeste stared at him, heart lodged somewhere between her ribs. This is a house? A home, he corrected. For me? For you? For us? If you want it to be. Her lips parted. Why would you give me something like this? Roman sat down beside her. Because I know what it's like to have nothing that belongs to you. No keys, no place to fall apart. She blinked. I never asked for this. I know. Then why? Roman looked at her, deep, steady. Because I never want you to feel trapped here. You didn't choose me for money or safety. You chose me when you had nothing. That means everything. And if the day ever comes when you want to leave, you'll never have to do it with nothing again. Celeste stared at the document again. It wasn't about wealth. It was about dignity. She set the papers aside, then straddled Roman's lap, knees on either side of him. His hands moved instinctively to her hips. You do realize, she whispered, brushing her lips across his, that this just made me want to stay even more. Roman smiled, slow and full of heat. Then, prove it. She kissed him, deep and full, and didn't come up for air until his breath hitched. Her hand slid under his shirt, tracing every line of muscle like she was branding herself into him. And when he lifted her, carried her to the window, and pressed her body against the cool glass with the city watching below, they both knew this was no longer about escape. It was about claiming. Later, as they lay tangled on the living room floor, Roman spoke without looking at her. I didn't grow up knowing what permanence looked like. Celeste turned toward him, her cheek pressed against his chest. I never knew what safety felt like, she said. They lay in silence for a beat. Then he added, but I know I want to build it with you. The brownstone came with keys, codes, and a garden overgrown with wild jasmine and ivy. She visited it alone the next day, walked the halls barefoot, breathed in the wood and dust and new beginnings. She sat on the stairs and cried, not because she was scared, but because she was free. That night, she returned to Roman's bed. He looked up from a book as she entered, eyes warm. You didn't run, he said. She slipped under the sheets beside him, pressed her hand against his bare chest. No, she replied. I walked through every room and imagined what our kids would sound like playing inside. Roman's breath caught. Kids? Someday. He rolled onto his side, pulled her close. I'd give them the world. She smiled into his collarbone. Start with breakfast. Celeste lay in bed, awake long before dawn. Roman's arm was draped over her waist, his breath warm against her nape. He'd fallen asleep easily. He always did, as if sleep trusted him. She stared at the ceiling, heart knotted. Something had begun to press on her chest, an ache she hadn't named. They were married. They shared everything. They made love like they were born for it. And yet, a quiet voice in the back of her mind whispered, but do you love him? Does he love you? Or is this just comfort dressed in chemistry? Later that morning, Roman stepped into the kitchen, freshly showered and towel drying his hair. Celeste sat at the island, swirling a spoon through untouched oatmeal. He kissed her cheek, poured himself coffee, and leaned back against the counter. "You look like a woman with a heavy question," he said. She didn't look up. "I'm just thinking, want to let me in?" Her spoon stopped. Celeste set it down gently. "Do you love me?" Roman froze. Not in panic, not in offense, in calculation, and that was her answer. She stood, crossing her arms. "It's been weeks. We share a bed. You gave me a house. You listen, protect, care for me in every way. But you've never once said it." Roman placed his mug down. "Because I don't say things I'm not sure how to define. That's not an answer." He walked toward her. "What are you asking? If I adore you, I do. If I crave you, every second. If I'd tear down anyone who tried to hurt you, without hesitation. But is that love?" She pressed. "I don't know." His honesty cut deeper than any lie. "I married a stranger," she whispered, "because he made me feel like I could breathe again. And now I wake up wondering if I'm just an arrangement you happen to enjoy." Roman's jaw flexed. "I didn't plan for you." Celeste stepped back. "Then what am I?" He stared at her, eyes unreadable. "You're the first person I've let stay." Her lips parted, trembling. "And what if I want more than staying? What if I want to be chosen, not just accepted?" Roman didn't move, didn't speak. Silence thundered between them. That evening, he didn't come home for dinner. Celeste sat at the long table, alone, staring at the unlit candles. Her appetite vanished. By midnight, she gave up and climbed into bed alone. But she didn't cry. Not this time. He returned at 2:14 a.m. She heard the door click, the soft thud of his shoes against the tile. She didn't move. Roman entered the bedroom minutes later, still in his black dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, the top buttons undone. She sat up. Their eyes met in the dark. "I'm not used to love," he said finally. The word, the expectation. It's always come with price tags or agendas. "I'm not asking for a declaration," she said. "I'm asking if you feel something real, or if I'm just filling a silence for you." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You don't fill a silence. You silence everything else." Celeste's breath caught. Roman sat on the edge of the bed. "Every day I wake up and you're here, I have to remind myself this isn't some dream I'll lose. That's not comfort, Celeste. That's fear. That's something bigger than I've ever known." "Then say it," she whispered. "Say what it is." He turned to her, eyes softer than she'd ever seen. "I think I'm falling for you." Her heart twisted. "Falling?" "Yes," he said, "and I don't know how to stop." She reached for him, fingers threading through his. "You don't have to stop." Roman let out a breath he'd been holding too long. Then he leaned in. Their kiss was slow, heavy, not lust-driven, but filled with unspoken relief. This wasn't arrangement. This was evolution. They made love that night with the lights on. No shadows, no secrets. His hands trembled slightly when he touched her cheek. She kissed each knuckle. "I don't need you to say the words," she whispered, "but I need to feel them." Roman kissed her like she was sacred, and when he whispered her name over and over as she unraveled beneath him, she knew. She wasn't a fix. She wasn't a placeholder. She was his beginning. The next morning, she found a note in the kitchen. "Celeste, if falling is what this is, then I'm already gone. R." She pressed the note to her chest, eyes stinging, and smiled. The scent hit her first. Truffle oil, barely there, drifting from the open kitchen where Roman was finishing their pasta. Celeste swallowed hard, then blinked. Her stomach turned. "I'm sorry," she muttered, pushing back her chair. She walked, no, rushed, to the bathroom, barely making it in time. Roman found her 5 minutes later, sitting on the cool marble floor, forehead pressed against her knee. He didn't say anything. He simply knelt beside her, wrapped his arms around her, and pulled her into his lap. She didn't resist. "I'm fine," she whispered. Roman kissed her temple. "You don't look fine." "It's not the food," she added, as if that would make it better. "It's me. Something's off. You want me to call someone?" Celeste shook her head. "I just need to rest." Roman didn't push. He lifted her carefully, carried her back to bed, and tucked her in like she was glass and warmth all at once. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. The nausea continued for 3 days. Always in the morning, faint by noon, gone by night. Celeste tried to ignore it, blamed stress, diet, hormones. But on the 4th day, when she stood in the shower and noticed how tender her breasts felt, her hands froze. She closed her eyes, did the math, and for the first time in weeks, she felt her heart drop into her stomach. She walked into the pharmacy wearing sunglasses, a scarf, and the kind of oversized hoodie that screamed, "Don't look at me." 2 tests. Digital. Quick results. She paid in cash and rushed back to the brownstone. The test sat on the edge of the sink, mocking her with its blinking hourglass. Celeste paced. Back and forth. Back and forth. She wasn't ready. Not for this. She and Roman had only just begun to understand each other. What would a child mean? The screen changed. She froze, then looked. Pregnant. She sank to the floor. Her fingers covered her mouth. Tears came, not fear, not sadness, just overwhelming uncertainty, and a flicker of awe. She wasn't alone anymore. Roman came home late that night. Celeste didn't greet him at the door. Instead, he found her sitting on the balcony, blanket wrapped around her legs, one hand flat on her belly. The city shimmered behind her. Roman stepped outside, brows creasing. "You okay?" She nodded, but didn't speak. He sat beside her. Then she turned to him, voice soft. "I need to tell you something." His posture shifted. "What is it?" She reached into her robe pocket, pulled out the test and placed it in his hand. Roman stared at the screen. Once, twice, then again. He didn't say anything, didn't flinch, just breathed slowly, then set the test on the side table and knelt before her. His hands settled on her thighs. He leaned in and rested his forehead gently against her belly. "Our child," he said quietly, not as a statement, as a vow. Celeste's eyes burned. "You're not scared?" Roman looked up. His voice was low. "I'm terrified." She blinked. "But I want this, even if I'm not ready." "I'll wait until you are," he said. "But I'm already in." She kissed him then, hands in his hair, lips trembling. They didn't make love that night. Instead, they fell asleep, facing each other, palms pressed together over the curve of her abdomen, where a new heartbeat had quietly joined the rhythm of their story. The next morning, she woke up before the sun. Roman was still asleep, one arm slung over her stomach, protective even in dreams. She smiled, then whispered to the tiny life growing inside her, "You chose the right time." Even if I didn't think so. Roman didn't say much for the next 2 days. He was present, every morning with fresh fruit, every night with soft kisses and warm baths, but quieter than usual. Celeste didn't push. She knew silence could be love too. But on the 3rd evening, she found him on the rooftop, leaning against the steel railing, cigarette burning low between his fingers. He never smoked. Not until now. She walked toward him, robe cinched tightly, her hand instinctively brushing the slight curve at her belly. "You okay?" she asked softly. Roman didn't look at her. Trying to be. She stopped beside him, careful not to crowd. "Talk to me." He exhaled. "I didn't plan for this. I know. I didn't even think I could be this kind of man." She tilted her head. "What kind?" Roman dropped the cigarette, crushed it beneath his heel, then finally turned. "The kind who protects something fragile, the kind who doesn't mess it all up." His voice cracked. Celeste stepped closer. "You think you'll ruin us?" "I've never had a blueprint for this. I grew up without anyone telling me how to be soft, how to be good." She reached up, fingertips grazing his jaw. "You're not your past." "I know," he said, eyes dark. "But sometimes it feels like it's tattooed on me." Celeste placed his palm flat on her stomach. "It's not about being perfect," she said. "It's about being present." Roman looked down, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath his hand. "This little one," she whispered, "doesn't need a man who knows everything, just one who stays." He nodded slowly. "I'll stay," he murmured, "even if I don't know how." That night he barely let go of her. They lay wrapped in silence, her body nestled into his chest, his hand resting over the place where life had begun. "I've built empires," he said in the dark. Celeste brushed her fingers along his ribs. "I know, but this feels bigger." "It is." The following morning, Roman made a quiet phone call from his office. Celeste overheard him say only one thing that mattered. "Find me the best OBGYN in the city. Private, discreet. I want someone I can trust with everything." When he returned to the bedroom, she looked up from her book. "Making plans?" "For both of you," he replied. "Starting now." They visited the doctor later that week. Private clinic, high-rise view, zero press. Roman didn't let go of her hand from check-in to the moment the nurse dimmed the lights for the sonogram. Celeste's breath caught as the screen lit up. The grainy outline of their future flickered into view. Tiny, alive, real. Roman blinked hard. Is that? The nurse smiled. Yes, that's your baby. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, in a low whisper, he said, I didn't know I could want anything this much. Afterward, they sat in the car without speaking. Then Celeste reached over and laced her fingers with his. We're really doing this, she said. Roman kissed the back of her hand. We already started. That night, he didn't take her to bed immediately. He cooked a full meal, basil chicken, roasted squash, and chilled coconut water. Celeste watched him move around the kitchen with a new energy. Focused, calm. I want to learn everything, he said, sliding her plate in front of her. About parenting, about you, about the baby, about what it means to be worthy of both. She blinked, eyes misting. You already are. Roman leaned down, kissed her forehead. I want to make sure you never question that. When they made love that night, it wasn't slow or fast. It was steady. Each touch a promise, each kiss a reminder. She was carrying more than a child now. Later, he whispered into her neck, I don't need to be my father. No, she agreed. You need to be you. And that's enough? She turned to face him. That's everything. It happened on a Tuesday. There was no thunderclap, no dramatic cue, just quiet. Roman was at the desk, reviewing documents. Celeste was curled up on the couch, legs tucked under her, reading something she wasn't actually absorbing. She'd grown used to the ache in her back, the occasional headaches, the dizzy waves that came and went like tide. All manageable. But this was different. It was like a flutter, not gas, not nausea, movement, life. She gasped softly, one hand flying to her lower belly. Roman looked up instantly. What's wrong? She couldn't speak at first. She just smiled, and then whispered. He kicked. Roman's brows pulled in. What? She laughed, breath catching. Or she, I don't know, but I felt it. She reached for his hand. Come here. Roman crossed the room in 2 steps, dropped to his knees in front of her. Celeste guided his palm to the spot. They waited. Seconds stretched. Then, there, a gentle nudge. Roman's fingers tensed. His eyes widened. I felt that. She nodded, eyes glistening. That's our baby. He didn't speak. He couldn't. He was utterly still, eyes locked on her belly, as if it were something sacred. He kissed the skin beneath his palm, then kissed it again. Whispers followed, soft, low, almost reverent. Hey there, he murmured. I'm your dad. Celeste's throat tightened. I don't know what I'm doing yet, Roman continued, but I'm going to figure it out. For you, for her. He looked up at Celeste. For both of you. She touched his hair, sliding her fingers through the strands. I think you're already doing more than enough, she whispered. Roman laid his cheek against her belly. I've been feared by men, he said. I've owned buildings, contracts, weapons, loyalty. But this small kick just made me feel more alive than all of it. They sat like that for a long time. No need to rush, no performance, just the 3 of them. Existing. Later, Roman made her tea with lemon and honey. Celeste sat at the counter, hands resting protectively over her bump. I've been thinking, she said. Roman turned from the stove. Dangerous habit. She smiled. I want to start a journal. For the baby? She nodded. Letters, memories. So one day, when they ask how we met, how we became a family, they'll know. Roman's eyes softened. They'll know even without the paper. I want them to know from me, in my words, not from gossip, not from whispers in social circles. Roman nodded. Then start it. I'll help you remember every detail. That night, she wrote her first entry. Dear you, today you moved. Just a soft push, but it shook your father to his core. He kissed the spot you nudged and told you he'd try to be a good man. He already is. We didn't plan for you. But I think love rarely arrives on schedule. Mom. She left the notebook on the nightstand. When she woke the next morning, there was a new entry beneath hers. Little one, I don't know how to braid hair or fix toys, but I know how to fight for what matters. I've never protected anything soft before, but I'd destroy anything that tried to hurt you. And your mom? She saved me before you ever existed. She gave me a reason to build a future. I hope I can give you the same, Dad." Celeste wiped her eyes and smiled, and for the first time in her life she believed this was real. This was safe. This was love. The house was quiet. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of wind pressing against the windows, and the occasional flutter of Celeste turning the pages of her journal. Roman was watching her from the armchair, shirt half open, sleeves rolled, collarbone shadowed in the golden light of the table lamp. She knew he was watching, and she liked it. Her pen slowed. "You're staring," she said without looking up. Roman's voice came low and deliberate. "I'm memorizing." She smiled softly. "Do I look different?" "Yes." Celeste turned her head. "How?" "Like someone who's full of purpose," he said, "and completely, devastatingly mine." She closed the notebook, stood, and walked toward him. The silk of her nightgown kissed her thighs with every step. Roman didn't move. His eyes followed every motion, slow, deliberate. She stopped in front of him, between his knees. Her hand slipped into his hair. "You've been careful with me," she murmured. He nodded, his hands resting on her hips. "You're carrying my entire world. Tonight," she whispered, tilting his chin upward, "I want you to lose control." Roman inhaled through his nose. His eyes darkened. "You sure?" She took his hand and pressed it to the soft rise of her belly. "We're sure." He stood in one motion, fluid, powerful, lifted her like she weighed nothing. She laughed softly against his neck as he carried her toward the bedroom. Her fingers gripped his shirt, tugging it apart, buttons scattering to the floor. By the time they reached the edge of the bed, she was breathless and burning. Roman laid her down gently, then stood back. His shirt was gone. His belt followed, but he didn't rush. He was savoring, undressing her like a man unwrapping something holy. Celeste rose onto her elbows as he traced a path from her ankle to her thigh with his mouth. "Roman," she breathed. He didn't answer with words, just kissed higher and higher. His hand slipped beneath the silk, fingers gliding along her skin with reverence. Celeste arched. The sensation wasn't just pleasure, it was safety, wrapped in heat. When he slid his mouth between her thighs, she gasped, hips rising in search of more. He gave it, all of it, until her moans filled the room, thick and unfiltered, until her body tensed, shattered, and reformed in his hands. She pulled him up, her fingers digging into his shoulders. "I need you inside me." Roman paused, his forehead resting against hers. "You're sure?" "I've never been more." He entered her in one slow, perfect thrust. They both exhaled, shaky, synced, undone. They moved slowly at first. Every inch felt. Every breath counted. Roman held her like she'd vanish if he let go. His lips stayed near her ear, whispering things she couldn't remember later, but would never forget how they made her feel. Celeste wrapped her legs around him, pulling him deeper. He groaned, rough, unguarded. "I can feel you," she whispered, voice breaking. "All of you." Roman kissed her jaw. "You're the only thing that grounds me." The rhythm built, not rushed, not mechanical, but inevitable, like gravity drawing two bodies into one orbit. Her nails scratched his back. His mouth claimed hers. And when release came, it wasn't just physical, it was emotional. A breaking, a rebuilding, a vow with skin instead of words. They stayed tangled, limbs limp, hearts racing. Celeste tucked her head under his chin, her hand drifting across his chest. "I don't think I've ever felt that kind of everything," she said softly. Roman kissed the top of her head. "It wasn't just sex." "No," she agreed. "It was the fire after the storm." And before the next one, he added. Celeste smiled. "Then let's burn until it rains again." Hours later, just before sunrise, Roman sat on the edge of the bed, his back bare, tattoos shadowed in early light. Celeste stirred. "Where are you going?" He looked over his shoulder. "Nowhere. Just needed to breathe." She sat up, draping the sheet across her chest. Roman turned fully, his eyes soft. "I've never let anyone take me apart like that." Celeste reached for his hand. "That's because no one earned it before." He gripped her hand tight, then whispered, "You're not my escape anymore. You're my anchor." She leaned in, pressed her lips to his. "And you're my reason. They crawled back under the sheets together. This time, not to burn, but to rest, side by side, hearts beating steady, and a new life growing between them, already carried by a love that had stopped being accidental. The first time Celeste noticed it was at the cafe. Roman had insisted they take a walk, just the two of them, despite the growing bump beneath her sundress and the swelling in her feet. He promised fresh air and the city's best lemon tarts. They sat near the window. The waiter approached with 2 menus and a smile until he saw Roman's face. Then the smile faltered. His eyes dropped instantly, and he addressed Roman with something just shy of fear. "Mr. Blackwood, welcome." Roman didn't respond. He just nodded once. The man stepped back like he'd been dismissed. Celeste tilted her head. "Do you come here often?" "No," Roman said. "Then how does he know you?" Roman's hand covered hers. Some people notice more than others. Later, as they walked through a nearby boutique, Celeste noticed it again. The staff whispered when they entered. 2 of them moved behind the register. One woman looked like she wanted to disappear. Celeste picked up a tiny knit sweater in pale blue. She smiled. "Think it's too early to shop?" Roman didn't answer. She looked up. He was watching the door, not anxious, just alert. Celeste stepped closer. "Roman?" He turned to her, gave her a soft smile. "Let me take care of checkout." By the time they reached the car, the sweater was folded neatly in a branded box, tied with ribbon. Roman helped her into the passenger seat. "Why are people so tense around you?" she asked once the doors closed. Roman stared ahead for a moment, then said simply, "Power makes people uncomfortable when it isn't loud." She studied him. "Is that all it is?" He met her gaze. "You're safe with me. That's all that matters." It was an answer, but not a full one. 2 days later, Celeste visited the doctor alone. Roman had a meeting. He kissed her forehead, pressed a bodyguard's number into her hand, and made her promise she'd text the moment she arrived. The appointment was normal. Heartbeat strong. Blood pressure steady. The doctor smiled. "You're carrying low. Could be a boy." Celeste laughed. Or just a defiant girl. But the moment she stepped out of the building, she felt it. Eyes. 2 men in black suits stood near the elevator. One checked his watch. The other pressed his earpiece closer. She clutched her purse and walked toward the exit. The taller man stepped forward. "Mrs. Blackwood." She froze. He reached into his coat, slowly, and handed her a card. "Private transport, prepaid destination." The penthouse. She blinked. "Roman sent you?" "Yes, ma'am. He wanted to make sure you were comfortable. It's not safe to walk." "Why wouldn't it be safe?" The man didn't answer, just held the door open. Celeste sat in the car, heart thudding. Roman hadn't called, but he'd deployed security. Was he paranoid? Or did he know something she didn't? That evening she confronted him. He was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, chopping vegetables. "Did you send those men?" "Yes." "Why?" Roman looked up. "Because I wasn't with you, and I always want someone near in case anything happens." "That's not normal." He dropped the knife softly. "Neither is my life." Celeste stepped closer. "Tell me what you do, really. No metaphors, no vague answers. I need the truth." Roman studied her, then wiped his hands on a towel and motioned for her to follow him. He led her into his office, a room she rarely entered. It was sleek, organized, but cold in a way nothing else in the penthouse was. Roman opened a drawer and pulled out a file. Thick, sealed. He handed it to her. Celeste opened it slowly. Inside, contracts, building titles, ownership certificates, photos, and a single passport with a different last name. "Everything in this city that moves without being seen," he said, "either owes me or fears me." Celeste's mouth went dry. "You're not just wealthy. No, you're dangerous." Roman's voice didn't waver. "Only to people who cross me. Have you—" "No," he interrupted, stepping closer. "I haven't hurt anyone who didn't earn it. I protect what's mine. That's always been the rule." Celeste closed the file, and then asked, "Am I safe with you?" Roman stepped into her space, pressed his forehead to hers. "You're the only place I've ever felt peace." They didn't speak much after that, not for the rest of the night, but when they lay in bed, Celeste didn't pull away. She curled into him and whispered, "I believe you, but I need you to keep proving it." Roman kissed the crown of her head. "Every day," he vowed. Celeste never intended to snoop. But that morning, Roman's second phone buzzed on the counter, unlocked. He was in the shower, music playing, water humming through the walls. She stared at the screen. Message, transfer confirmed, Eastern hub secure, 72 hours to execute. Her breath stalled. It could have meant anything, or it could have meant something. She looked toward the bathroom door. Still closed. Still safe. She picked up the phone, scrolled. Most of the messages were encrypted, names replaced with numbers, codes, initials. One thread stood out. Sender, NR message. The files from the Marseille deal are secure. West line is clean. No loose ends. Celeste's heart pounded. This wasn't real estate. This was something else. Something structured, dangerous, invisible to the world she used to belong to. She tapped another thread. Sender, S3 message. Package is en route. Final clearance confirmed. Her security is your liability now. Her? Was that about her? Was she the package? She heard the shower stop. She dropped the phone, stepped back, heart racing. Roman emerged moments later, towel slung low on his hips, hair damp, lips relaxed into a soft grin, until he saw her face. He stilled. What happened? Celeste's voice was calm. Too calm. What's the Marseille deal? Roman didn't blink. Where did you see that? Your phone buzzed. I read the screen, that's all. He stepped forward slowly. Celeste, you said I was safe, she cut in. You said you'd always be honest. And now I'm finding out you're running international deals and getting messages that sound like code from a movie. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Roman exhaled through his nose, jaw tight. I clean things up for powerful people, governments, private entities, corporations. I don't sell weapons. I don't deal in trafficking. I manage information, high-risk logistics, and assets that aren't supposed to exist in public record. Celeste blinked. Assets, people, accounts, locations, sometimes situations. She turned from him, arms crossed over her chest. You said you didn't lie. I haven't, he said. I just haven't told you everything. Same thing. No, Roman said firmly. It's not, because I've spent my whole life keeping people out. But with you, I've let you in as far as I've ever let anyone. And that's not a small thing, Celeste. She spun back toward him. I don't care how deep your empire goes, Roman. What I care about is whether I'm just one more part of it. His expression softened. You're not a part of it. You're the only thing untouched by it. The silence between them pulsed. Roman stepped closer. I'll shut it down. Celeste's brows lifted. What? I'll walk away from it. Give it up. The meetings, the assets, the reach. If it means giving this child peace, if it means you'll stay. Celeste's throat tightened. I never asked you to give up everything. You don't have to. I want to. She hesitated. What if walking away is dangerous? Roman cupped her jaw gently, then let the danger come. I'm not letting my family live in shadow. She searched his face for a lie, found none. Just resolve, pure and certain. You do that, for us? She asked. Roman kissed her forehead. I'd do it for myself, because you gave me something I didn't know I was still allowed to want. Freedom that doesn't come from control. The next day, he started making calls. Discreet, methodical. She heard the phrases but didn't ask for context. Shut down the outer web. Dissolve shell core. Terminate all standing client directives unless flagged critical to life. Erase ties to Westline accounts. Each call was another brick removed from a fortress he'd spent years building. Each call left him freer and more exposed, but he never hesitated. That night, Celeste couldn't sleep. She stood in the doorway of his office, watching him at his desk, shirtless, files spread around him. He looked up. You okay? She walked in, stood behind him, and wrapped her arms around his chest. I've never seen someone destroy their entire kingdom with so much grace, she whispered. He reached up, took her hands, kissed her knuckles. It's not destruction, it's rebuilding. She leaned into him. What now? Roman closed the folder. Now, I become the man who doesn't need to control the world to feel like a man. Celeste pressed her cheek against his shoulder. I think you already are. The rooftop looked like a dream. Candles in hurricane jars lined the perimeter. Twinkle lights hung across the steel railing. Soft jazz hummed from invisible speakers. The city glowed below them like a constellation trapped in concrete. Roman had arranged the table himself, white linen, crystal glasses, silver cutlery. But the centerpiece was Celeste. She wore a pale ivory dress that hugged her small bump just enough to make it real. Her hair was down, loose curls framing her face, catching the wind just right. Roman couldn't look away. "Don't spoil me," she said, as he pulled out her chair. "Too late," he replied. Dinner started softly. Grilled fish, fresh greens, laughter between bites. For a moment, they were just husband and wife. A couple in love, expecting their first child. But Celeste had questions, and they'd been building quietly beneath the sweetness. She placed her fork down. "Tell me about her." Roman's brows lifted. "Who? The woman before me." He leaned back slightly, wine glass poised. "There's been no one since you." "I know. I'm not asking about that." He set the glass down. "You really want to know?" She nodded. "I want to know who you were before I met the version of you that keeps giving me new definitions of safety." Roman folded his napkin slowly. "There was one," he said. "Her name was Elise. Met her in New York when I was building my third company. She was sharp, cold, knew how to handle the world, but she never let me in." Celeste listened, expression unreadable. She was a partner in strategy, but not in heart. "We didn't share silence, only noise. What ended it? She tried to use what I gave her against me. Thought leverage meant power." His voice dropped. "She leaked information, clients, threats. Didn't realize how dangerous the people around me were." Celeste's stomach tightened. "What happened to her?" "She ran," Roman said simply, "and I let her." Celeste exhaled. "You don't talk about her, ever?" "Because she never held a piece of me worth mentioning. Not like you." Silence stretched between them. "But it wasn't cold. It was necessary. I'm not her," Celeste said softly. Roman's voice was low. "I know that. I don't want control over you. I just want honesty." "You have it," he said. "You've always had it." After dessert, they moved to the railing. The city pulsed below. Celeste sipped her tea while Roman stood behind her, hands resting on her shoulders. "I saw something in your safe," she said suddenly. Roman stilled. "When?" "Last week. It was open. I wasn't snooping, just curious." "What did you see?" "A ring." He exhaled. "It was my mother's." Celeste turned. "I didn't know you still had anything from her. I don't keep much, but it reminds me where I came from. What I don't want to return to. You kept it locked away." Roman looked out over the skyline. "Some things are easier to love from a distance." She reached for his hand. "Don't keep me at a distance. You're not a thing I hide, Celeste. But you're hiding parts of yourself." He faced her. "Because I'm still figuring out how to give them away without losing who I've become." "You won't lose anything." Roman's voice dropped. "I already lost everything once. The day my mother died." Celeste softened. "You're not that boy anymore." "No," he said, "but I still remember him. Every time I look in the mirror." A long pause. Then Celeste whispered, "When you're ready to give me that ring, I'll wear it. Not because I need more proof, but because I'll know you're not afraid to let me hold the parts of you you're still healing." Roman looked down at their joined hands, then nodded once. Slow. "Sure, I'll give it to you, but not tonight." "That's okay," she said. "I'm not in a rush. Later, in bed." He pulled her close. They didn't make love. They just held each other, and for the first time, Roman didn't try to fall asleep fast. He stayed awake, whispering memories into her hair, one by one, letting her hold them without judgment. The ultrasound room was colder than usual. Celeste lay back, gown open at the front, her bump a small but undeniable rise beneath warm gel. Roman sat beside her, fingers laced with hers, squeezing gently every few minutes. It had become their rhythm. The technician was quiet, focused, too quiet. Celeste lifted her head slightly. "Everything okay?" The woman nodded, but didn't look up. "Just give me a moment." Roman's hand tightened. The screen flickered. A pause. Then a slow exhale. "Well," the tech finally said, her voice light, "this is a first." Celeste's stomach turned. "What is?" The woman angled the monitor toward them. "There's not one," she said. "Not two." She turned the screen again. There are 3. Silence. Absolute. Roman blinked. I'm sorry, what? 3 heartbeats, the technician confirmed. Triplets. Celeste sat up too quickly, smearing gel across her arm. Are you serious? The woman smiled. I've been doing this job for 14 years. That sound? She pointed to the rhythmic pulsing. 3 distinct heartbeats, all strong, all stable. Celeste looked at Roman. His face had gone pale. No words, no breath, just stillness. In the car afterward, Roman drove in silence. Celeste sat in the passenger seat, hands resting protectively over her belly. Triplets. 3. It kept circling her brain like a chant. She looked over. You haven't said anything. Roman didn't take his eyes off the road. I'm trying to process. You? Mr. Compose. He exhaled. I can handle crisis. I can outmaneuver billion-dollar buyouts, break down military-grade encryption, and negotiate black market deals in 2 languages. But this? 3 babies? He nodded slowly. This is the one thing that makes me feel completely out of my depth. She reached over and took his hand off the gear shift. Then we learned together. Roman looked at her. You're not scared? I'm terrified, she said. But I'm also not alone. That makes all the difference. They didn't return to the penthouse. Roman drove them straight to the brownstone. Their quieter space. He needed calm. Celeste needed comfort. They ordered takeout and didn't touch it. Just sat on the floor, back against the couch, her head on his shoulder. After a while, Roman said, My father left when I was 2. I don't even remember what his voice sounded like. Celeste was quiet. I told myself if I ever had kids, I'd do it differently. But I never imagined I'd get one shot at being a father to 3. She reached for his hand. You don't need to have all the answers. He turned to her. But I want to be enough for them. For you. You already are. Later that night, Roman disappeared into his home office for an hour. When he came back, Celeste was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. He slipped in beside her, held her close, then whispered, I bought the house next door. Celeste blinked. What? We'll knock the wall out, extend the bedrooms, make a nursery that actually fits 3 cribs, a playroom, whatever you need. You did all that in 1 hour? I'm not panicking. I'm preparing. She laughed, half in shock, half in affection. You're unbelievable. I'm just trying to become the kind of man who's ready for 3 sets of everything. She cupped his jaw. You already are. The next morning, Roman placed 3 blank journals on the kitchen island. What's this? Celeste asked. 1 for each child, he said. I figured we'd start writing to them. Before they arrive. Celeste opened one. Blank pages, gold trimmed. Her throat caught. You're going to be a good father. Roman leaned down, kissed her forehead. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they never wonder if they're loved. Weeks passed. Appointments multiplied. So did the symptoms. Celeste struggled to sleep. Her appetite fluctuated. Her hormones made her weep at commercials. But Roman never flinched. Not once. He massaged her feet nightly, learned how to cook iron-rich meals, sat through hours of prenatal classes, sometimes more prepared than the instructors. One night, she found him kneeling in front of her bump, his forehead resting against the curve. Do you ever miss your old life? She asked softly. He looked up. I thought power was the goal, he said. Turns out, peace is harder to find, and you gave me both. She touched his cheek. You gave me the strength to become a mother. That night, he held her belly like it was the most fragile thing in the universe, and whispered, I love you. Not to her ears, but to the tiny lives growing beneath his hand. The contractors arrived before sunrise. Celeste stirred to the sound of drills and footsteps echoing through the brownstone's hallway. She rolled over, groggy, to find Roman already dressed in dark slacks and a fitted black tee, a cup of chamomile tea in hand. I told them not to make noise before 8, he said with a wince, walking over to help her up. You renovated the house without noise? She teased, rubbing sleep from her eyes. I paid for magic, he smirked. Celeste sipped from the cup, comforted by the warmth. What are they doing first? The nursery, then expanding your closet, then building a library for bedtime stories, Roman said, ticking them off with military precision. She blinked. Wait, my closet? You're carrying 3 children. You deserve space for your comfort, your mood swings, and every version of yourself. The nursery started as one room, but it didn't stay that way. Roman had the entire west wing gutted and redone. 3 separate cribs, soundproof insulation, blackout curtains, soft gold and ivory wallpaper with hand-painted stars. Celeste stood in the middle of it all one afternoon, one hand on her belly, the other covering her mouth as emotions swelled in her throat. "This doesn't look like a nursery," she whispered. "It looks like a dream." Roman wrapped his arms around her from behind. "That's the point." Celeste, too, began to prepare, not just the house, but herself. She signed up for prenatal yoga. She met with a maternal therapist to process her fears. She read books on raising multiples, scribbling notes and questions and jokes in the margins. But one afternoon, while folding freshly laundered onesies, she froze. She was alone in the quiet of their walk-in closet, Roman at a board meeting, and out of nowhere the thought came, what if I can't do this? 3 babies, 3 demands, 3 hearts dependent on hers. Her vision blurred. She sank to the floor, surrounded by tiny clothes, and pressed her forehead to her knees. Roman found her like that. He dropped his briefcase, kneeling immediately. "Celeste, what's wrong?" She didn't speak, just reached for him like he was oxygen. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she finally whispered. "What if I break?" Roman cupped her face. "Then I'll hold the pieces, every time." She looked into his eyes, calm, unshaken, unwavering. "And if I can't be the perfect mom, there's no such thing. But there's your way, and our kids won't need perfection. They'll need you." They sat like that for hours, not moving, just holding. Later that night, Roman brought her a small velvet box. She opened it. Inside was a gold pendant in the shape of 3 stars orbiting a single moon. "You're the moon," he said quietly. "Constant, gentle, always pulling us toward your light." 2 weeks later, the library was complete. Roman filled the shelves with stories from around the world, folk tales, princess adventures, bedtime poems, and even a few business books with the pages glued shut. He called that symbolic balance. Celeste laughed so hard she cried. Then she stopped laughing. "Roman," she said, touching her stomach. "They're kicking." He rushed over, knelt, and waited. The faintest movement pressed back against his palm. Roman's eyes shimmered. "Hello, my warriors," he whispered. "I can't wait to meet you." Rain tapped gently against the penthouse windows as Roman stood in the dim glow of the nursery night lamp. Celeste watched him from the doorway. He hadn't noticed her yet. His hands were in his pockets, his jaw clenched, his eyes distant. He was staring at the 3 cribs like they were ticking clocks. "Hey," she said softly. He didn't flinch, just exhaled. "They'll be here soon." She stepped in, her silk robe flowing behind her, and slipped her hand into his. "They're lucky," she said. He didn't respond. She turned to face him fully. "Roman?" A pause. Then, "Do you believe people can outrun what made them?" Celeste blinked, startled by the rawness in his tone. "I think people don't have to repeat what broke them," she answered gently. Roman's throat bobbed. "My father was a monster," he said flatly. "He drank, he lied, he hit my mother, he hit me. He wasn't there when I needed him, and when he was, I wished he wasn't." Celeste tightened her grip. He continued, eyes locked on the shadows between the cribs. "When I was 7, I learned how to stitch my own split lip in the mirror. When I was 11, I learned how to clean up broken glass before my mom stepped on it. And by 16, I stopped believing G-love was real." Silence hung heavy. Celeste stepped in front of him, cupping his face. "Roman," she said firmly, "you won't. You don't know that I do." He pulled away slightly. "But what if I lose control? What if the pressure gets to me? The business, the kids, everything. It's so much." "You are not him," she said, unwavering. "You're building rooms before they're even born. You're reading books on child psychology. You're scared, and that fear proves you care." He sank onto the nursery couch. "I keep hearing his voice, every time I get mad, every time I feel overwhelmed. I hear how he used to say I was weak, that men don't cry, that love is a leash." Celeste knelt in front of him. "You are not his voice. You're your own story, and you've already rewritten the ending." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "I don't know if I'll ever stop fearing it." "Maybe you won't," she said. "But fear isn't failure, it's fuel." Later that night, Roman laid beside her, his head on her belly, listening to the soft rhythm of life inside her. "I want them to know joy," he said. They will, she promised. And I want them to trust me. They will. I want them to never wonder if they're safe. They'll never have to. He kissed her belly once, then looked at her. What if I mess up? Celeste smiled faintly. Then we learn, we grow, and we forgive. That's family. Roman exhaled deeply. I've never been more terrified. You've never been more ready. That night, Roman dreamed, not of fists and fear, but of little feet pattering down hallways, laughter echoing through marble halls, and 3 tiny voices calling out, "Papa!" And when he woke up, Celeste beside him, belly rising and falling, he didn't feel fear. He felt something else. Hope. It was a quiet evening, the kind that settled like silk over the world, still, warm, filled with unspoken things. Celeste lay curled on the chaise lounge in Roman's study, reading a book she hadn't really been reading. Her fingers idly traced her growing bump, which had started to round more in recent days. Roman was at his desk, reviewing blueprints for the nursery wing expansion, though his eyes kept flicking toward her. Every time she shifted, he looked up. "You're staring," she said without lifting her head. "You're glowing," he replied. She scoffed softly. "I look like a peach that's been left out in the sun." "No, you look like the beginning of everything that's good." He stood and crossed the room, kneeling beside her. One hand gently pressed against her belly. "You feel anything?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not yet. The doctor said soon." Roman rested his ear gently against her belly. "I know you 3 are in there," he murmured. "I hope you're listening." Celeste smiled and ran her fingers through his hair. "I think they hear you." Then suddenly, flutter. Her hand jerked slightly. Her breath caught. Roman felt it too. "Did you?" he started. She gasped. There it is again. It was subtle, like a tiny nudge from inside, but unmistakable. A kick. One of them had kicked. Roman froze, then looked up at her, eyes wide with wonder. "That was real?" She laughed, nodding. "That was them." He moved quickly, cupping both hands around her bump, waiting. "Do it again," he whispered to the babies. "Let me feel you." A pause. Then another kick, stronger. Celeste let out a choked sound, half laugh, half cry. Roman's jaw clenched with emotion. "That's our child," he breathed. She corrected him. "Our children." He leaned forward and kissed her belly, reverent and gentle. "I'll protect you," he said to the unborn trio, "all 3 of you. And your mother." Celeste's hand slid over his. "I think they know," she whispered. They sat like that for minutes. No need for music or words, just the quiet miracle of presence. Roman eventually pulled back and rested his forehead against hers. "They're real now," he said. "I mean, they were always real. But now they're here." Celeste nodded. "Yeah, I felt like I was holding my breath since the test. But now they've said hello." "They kicked," he murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. "They actually kicked. You should write that in your journal," she teased. He chuckled. "I might." Then softer. "What if one of them's a girl? What if 2 are?" She shot back. He looked both panicked and enchanted. "Then I'm ruined." Celeste grinned. "Then you'll be loved endlessly." Later in bed, her back pressed to his chest, Roman spooned her carefully, like she was porcelain but cherished. One arm draped protectively around her, his hand resting on the swell of life. "You changed everything," he said into the back of her neck. She turned slightly. "We both did." Another gentle nudge stirred beneath his palm. Roman closed his eyes and smiled. Roman Blackwood was a man of precision. He didn't tolerate chaos, and he never made space for anything that didn't serve a purpose. Until now. Now his penthouse, once a sanctuary of clean lines and curated silence, echoed with preparations for 3 lives who hadn't even arrived yet. The day after the first kick, he cleared his entire schedule. Meetings postponed, deals reassigned, private jet flights canceled. "I'm not leaving her side," he told his assistant bluntly. "But, sir," the Hong Kong board. I said no. His home, which once resembled a sleek fortress, now had softness creeping in. Tiny shoes lined a hallway. A custom crib arrived. A rocking chair appeared beside the floor-to-ceiling windows where Celeste liked to watch the rain. Celeste stood barefoot in one of his button-down shirts, watching deliverymen bring in plush bassinets and padded mats. "You're nesting harder than I am," she teased. Roman came up behind her, wrapped his arms low around her waist. I'm making space, he murmured. For you, for them, for whatever version of me I need to become. She tilted her head toward him. You're already that man, Roman. You just needed a reason to show it. That night, he drew her a bath. The tub overflowed with warm lavender water and soft foam, flickering candles lining the marble rim. He didn't just help her undress, he did it like a prayer. One button at a time, one kiss per inch of skin. Celeste stepped into the water, easing herself down with a soft exhale. Roman rolled up his sleeves, then sat on the edge of the tub and cupped water over her shoulders. Does it still hurt? He asked gently, gliding his palm across her back. Sometimes, she whispered, not the way it did when I ran, but healing has its own sting. Roman nodded. I never wanted to rescue you, Celeste. I just wanted to give you somewhere to land. She leaned her head against the porcelain and looked at him. You gave me more than that. A moment passed between them, raw and unshielded. Then she said quietly, Will you join me? He didn't ask twice. He undressed in silence, letting the water speak. When he stepped in, she shifted so her back rested to his chest. His arms wrapped around her, hands over her belly. 3 soft kicks responded to his touch, and they both laughed softly. You're not shy anymore, Roman said to the babies. Celeste tilted her head to kiss his jaw. Neither am I. They stayed that way, suspended in warmth. Roman's fingers traced the edge of her collarbone. Her hand rested on his thigh. The intimacy wasn't rushed. It was slow and full of grace. Her body had changed. So had her needs. He never made her feel small for that. When he helped her stand, he wrapped her in a thick towel and carried her to bed. There, under low light and the hum of jazz, he took his time with her. His mouth learned new curves. His hands worshipped new weight. His eyes never left hers. Their bodies met like they had 1,000 times before, but this was different. Roman moved slowly, anchoring each kiss, every thrust in devotion. I love you, he said between breaths, buried deep in her warmth. I don't say it enough, but I love you. Celeste wrapped her arms around him tighter. Then don't stop saying it. He kissed her belly between their entwined bodies and whispered, I love you, and you, and you. Afterward, she lay curled into his chest, skin damp, his hand splayed across her bump. I thought wealth made a man powerful, he murmured. But it doesn't? No, love does. Celeste smiled sleepily. Then you're the most powerful man I know. The next morning, Roman was already up with contractors by 6 a.m. Knock that wall out. I want a playroom that connects directly to the master bedroom, he instructed. And that sunroom? Make it hers, soundproof. With velvet seating, low lighting, and a cradle. Celeste came out in her robe, yawning. You're building me a nest? Roman grinned. No, I'm building a world. He brought her a smoothie, kissed her nose, and whispered, Tell me if anything feels too much, or not enough. This space should breathe with us. Celeste took his hand, kissed his palm, and said, It already does. The ballroom at the Mayfair Hotel gleamed under the light of 1,000 crystal pendants. Music hummed from the string quartet in the far corner. Glasses clinked. Laughter rippled. But nothing drew attention like the woman who stepped through the arched entryway. Celeste. She didn't just walk. She moved like every step was a declaration. The red silk hugged her new curves, her bump held proudly, not hidden. The slit in her gown kissed the edge of her thigh as she moved. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and a single diamond choker crowned her neck. She was glowing, not because of makeup or styling, but because she was finally standing in her full truth. Roman was at her side, suited in midnight black. His hand rested gently at the small of her back as they entered the gala, silent, confident, unstoppable. The chatter shifted. Whispers followed them like perfume. Is that? She's pregnant. And that's Roman Blackwood with her. The women gawked. The men straightened their jackets. Eyes flared with shock, envy, admiration. And then, across the room, Griffin Kane turned. The champagne flute in his hand froze halfway to his lips. His mouth parted slightly, his color drained, just enough to betray the crack beneath his polished mask. He saw her, really saw her, and for the first time since she'd vanished from his life, he realized exactly what he'd thrown away. Celeste caught his eyes, held them, but her expression didn't beg for approval or revenge. It was calm, unbothered, powerful. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She simply turned her head toward Roman and whispered something that made Roman chuckle and lean in to kiss her temple. Griffin's jaw tensed. The woman he'd once cast aside had not only survived, she had risen, and she was carrying the children of a man more powerful than Griffin could ever dream of becoming. A photographer asked for a picture. Roman nodded. Celeste turned slightly, letting her bump show with regal pride as Roman's hand cradled it softly from behind. The camera flashed. The image would make headlines by morning. Billionaire Roman Blackwood attends gala with mysterious fiancée. Twins on the way? Griffin didn't move. Couldn't. He looked like a man realizing in real time that he had just lost the greatest gamble of his life. Later, at the hors d'oeuvres table, he tried to approach. "Celeste," he said, voice tight with forced calm. She turned slowly, wineglass in hand. "Griffin, you look." She waited. Let him struggle. "Different," he finished. "I am." There was no malice in her voice, just clarity. He tried to chuckle. "So, it's true? You and Blackwood?" She didn't blink. "It is. And the babies?" She glanced down at her bump and smiled. "Ours." Griffin's throat worked. Celeste stepped closer, close enough for only him to hear. "I loved you once," she said, "but you never saw me." "Not really. I didn't know what I had. That's not my burden to carry anymore." Roman arrived then, with perfect timing, wrapping an arm protectively around her waist. He gave Griffin a polite nod. Celeste looked up at Roman, then back to Griffin. "Excuse us." They walked away together, radiant. "And Griffin?" He stood still in a room full of movement, frozen in the echo of a mistake he couldn't rewind. The terrace was dimly lit, quiet compared to the glamour inside the ballroom. Celeste stepped out for a breath of fresh air, her hand resting lightly on her belly. The city skyline stretched before her, bold, unwavering. The door clicked behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Celeste." Griffin's voice came, hushed, desperate. She stayed still. He stepped closer, stopping a few feet behind her. "You look radiant," he said. She turned slowly. Her face was calm, unbothered. "Thank you." Griffin shoved his hands into his pockets. "I didn't expect to see you here, let alone like this. Pregnant, happy, loved." Her voice was smooth, without bite. He flinched. "I made a mistake," he said abruptly, voice cracking at the edges. "I thought I was doing what was best, but seeing you tonight, with him, it's like everything I thought I wanted doesn't matter anymore." Celeste raised an eyebrow. "That's a beautiful speech," she said softly. "Did you rehearse it on the way over?" "No," he said quickly. "I'm serious. I let fear get in the way. She cut him off gently. "You let ego get in the way." Griffin stepped closer. "I thought you were trying to trap me. I thought the pregnancy was some play for sympathy or leverage. I didn't trust you." She looked him dead in the eye. "And that's why you lost me." He reached for her hand. She stepped back. "You didn't choose me then, Griffin. You don't get to want me now." He swallowed hard. "Can't you just give me a chance to explain?" "There's nothing you can say," she said simply. "You made your choice. Now I've made mine." The silence between them stretched like glass. "You know," she continued, "for a long time, I thought if I just became quieter, softer, easier, you'd love me the way I deserved." Griffin's face crumpled slightly. "But you never wanted a woman," she said. "You wanted someone to orbit you, smile on cue, ask for nothing." He shook his head. "That's not true." "But it was," she said. "And now? I'm with someone who sees me, every version of me, and loves all of it." She looked down at her bump. "And loves them." Griffin's voice was hoarse. "Do you love him?" Celeste didn't hesitate. "With everything in me." A pause. Then she added, "And I'm loved back." She began to walk past him. "Celeste, please just wait." She paused near the door and looked back one last time. "I don't hate you, Griffin. That's the saddest part." He blinked. "I pity you. Because you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that the best thing that ever happened to you walked away and never looked back." And with that, she returned inside. The doors shut behind her. Griffin stood alone, surrounded by city lights, drowning in his own silence. Words like knives, but she hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't needed to. Roman saw everything. From across the ballroom, glass of bourbon untouched in his hand, he watched Griffin corner Celeste on the terrace. Watched the way she stood her ground, calm and dignified. Watched the way Griffin reached, too close. Roman didn't move. He didn't make a scene. He simply burned. Beneath the polished tuxedo, his pulse was a storm. Not because he doubted her, but because he'd seen that look before on weaker men who mistook a queen's silence for permission. When she came back in, eyes clear, shoulders high, Roman was already at her side. "Ready to go?" he asked. She nodded once. Yes. He didn't ask what was said. Didn't need to. He could see it in her face, and that was enough. The car ride was quiet, but not empty. Tension curled in the air between them, unspoken, thick, charged. His hand rested on her thigh, possessive, not controlling, anchored, as if making sure she was still there, still his. They entered the penthouse in silence. She slipped out of her heels. He unfastened his cufflinks slowly, deliberately. She turned to speak, but he was already in front of her. His lips crashed into hers, hard, consuming, not asking, claiming. He lifted her in one swift motion, lips still locked, and carried her toward the master suite. She gasped against his mouth. "Roman." "No," he growled softly. "Not yet." He kicked the door open, laid her down, and stared. Her red gown clung to her curves, her breathing shallow. His jacket was already off, the tie undone, shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the lines of his chest. "I saw him touch you," Roman said, voice low. "Saw him try to breathe your air." She sat up, eyes wide, but calm. "I didn't let him." "I know," he said, "but I wanted to break every bone in his hand." She held his gaze. "You didn't need to." He came closer. "But I need this." He undressed her with his hands and mouth. Every inch he revealed, he kissed. Every curve, every scar, every breath, he owned. There was no rush, only reverence, only fire, only proof that she was his, that she chose him, that no man, past or present, would ever touch her again in thought or memory. She arched under him, soft sounds escaping her lips, hands clutching at his back. "Tell me," he whispered against her neck, "that you're mine." She gasped as he slid inside her, deep, slow, home. "I'm yours," she breathed. He moved with intent, like he could erase every unwanted touch from her history, like he could rewrite her skin with his own story. Their rhythm built, sweat and breath mixing. Her fingers dug into his arms. His mouth found hers again, hungry, wild. "Say it again," he demanded. "I'm yours," she moaned, "only yours." And when they fell together, trembling in each other's arms, it wasn't possession. It was devotion, not ownership, but vow. Later, in the quiet after, Roman pressed kisses to her shoulder. "I hate that he was near you." She smiled against his chest. "Then love me harder." "I planned to," he murmured. It started with silence. No storm, no rush, just Roman standing at the foot of the bed, watching her. His shirt was gone. His chest rose with steady breaths. His eyes, however, were dark and trembling, not with rage or lust, but with restraint, with everything he had been holding back since the first time he realized he was falling. Celeste lay before him in soft ivory silk, her hair cascading over the pillow, moonlight catching the curve of her collarbone. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Roman knelt at the edge of the bed, like a man before an altar. His hand reached out and found the arch of her ankle. He kissed it, slow and reverent, then ran his fingers upward, grazing her calf, her thigh. Her breath caught. Still, he said nothing, because words couldn't hold this. Only action could. He slid her nightdress up, inch by inch, revealing warm skin to the cool air. Her stomach, soft and round with life. Her hips, strong and beautiful. Her thighs parted slightly as if welcoming, not just his touch, but his truth. She watched him as he stripped away the last barrier between them. And when he finally leaned in, placing a kiss to the inside of her knee, Celeste whispered, "Take your time." That was all he needed. His mouth made a trail of heat, up her thigh, across her hip, down her belly, where the twins kicked softly beneath the surface. He paused, kissed the movement, and whispered something only the babies could hear. Then he rose his mouth now on hers, slow and full of aching need. This kiss was different. It wasn't desperate. It was surrender. It was Roman finally letting go. His hands explored her body like it was the first time all over again. Not with urgency, but wonder. Not with conquest, but awe. She moaned softly as he worshipped her breasts with his tongue, his lips, his palms. Every motion deliberate, every gesture filled with restraint unraveling. Her hips lifted toward him. He didn't rush. He stared into her eyes as he entered her, inch by inch, slow, deep, a claiming that was more spiritual than primal. Celeste gasped his name. Roman closed his eyes. "I need all of you. You have me," she breathed. "I mean everything," he said, his voice rough. "Your fears, your scars, the parts you hide even from yourself. You already know them. But I want you to know, still choose you, every piece." He thrust slowly, rhythmically, no fury. Just connection. Every movement was an affirmation. "I'm here. I see you. I want you." Tears gathered in her eyes, not from pain, but from how deeply he touched her without saying another word. Her fingers wove into his hair. He kissed her again, slower this time. Their bodies spoke a language older than apologies and sweeter than promises. When she came undone beneath him, her moan was not loud. It was sacred, a whispered surrender. Roman followed, his breath shattering in her ear as he collapsed onto her, still inside her, holding her like a man who had been lost his whole life and finally found his only home. They didn't speak for minutes, just the sound of hearts sinking, breaths softening, limbs entangled. Roman kissed her temple. "Tell me you felt it too," he murmured. Celeste turned to face him. Her eyes were wet. "I've never felt more wanted in my life." He buried his face in the crook of her neck. "I wasn't just making love to you," he whispered. "I was giving you the parts of me I never gave to anyone. And I took them," she said. "All of them." They lay in silence again, except this time there was no distance between their bodies, no walls between their hearts, just shared warmth, shared truths, and the slow realization that neither would ever have to protect themselves from love again. The thunder came first, a low, bone-rattling growl that shook the windows of the penthouse. Then the lightning, sharp and white, slicing through the night like a warning. Celeste shifted in bed, hands on her belly. The twins were moving restlessly. Then came the pain. Not the usual pressure. This was different. It stole her breath. And then came the second wave. Strong, unforgiving. "Roman," she called, her voice tight. He was already at her side. "What is it?" "The babies?" She nodded, jaw clenched. I think it's time." Everything happened fast. He called the driver, grabbed the hospital bag, held her steady as they stepped into the elevator, the thunder still cracking overhead like the universe was screaming with them. In the car, her breaths turned into gasps. Roman squeezed her hand, knuckles white. "Just breathe. I've got you. We're almost there." She clutched his arm. "Roman, I'm scared." He kissed her forehead, voice thick. "So am I. But I'm not going anywhere." The hospital lights were harsh and cold against the night's chaos. Doctors rushed toward them. A wheelchair appeared. Nurses asked questions too fast. Roman answered as best he could, not letting go of her hand once. "She's 36 weeks. Twins. Sharp pains started 20 minutes ago. Regular contractions. Room 4, a nurse barked. "Now." They wheeled her away. He followed. Inside the delivery suite, the atmosphere was different. Focused, urgent, wires, machines, AVs, monitors beeping in sync with her heartbeat, and the two smaller ones inside her. Roman stood by her head, brushing damp hair from her forehead. "I'm right here." She nodded, gripping his hand like it was the only thing tethering her to earth. Another contraction came. She cried out. Roman's eyes watered. He wanted to take the pain, trade places, but all he could do was stay. Hours passed like seconds and eternities all at once. The thunder kept rolling outside. Rain slammed the windows. Inside, Celeste labored. Roman paced, then returned to her, then paced again. When she whimpered, he came running. When she cried, he wiped her tears. When she screamed, he held her tighter. And when she broke, whispering, "I don't know if I can do this," he kissed her hand and said, "You already are." The doctor came in. "She's fully dilated. Time to push." Roman froze, then nodded. What do I do? Be her anchor, the nurse said. He leaned close. I've got you, Celeste. Look at me. Just me. She looked, and she pushed. The room turned primal. Time bled away. She screamed, fierce, raw, powerful. Roman held her leg, his other hand gripping hers. Push, baby. You've got this. You're doing it. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Then came a cry, a sharp, tiny wail that cut through the storm outside. The first baby. Then seconds later, a second cry. Softer. Higher. The twins. Roman staggered back. The sound of life. Of their life. He covered his mouth as nurses cleaned the babies. Celeste sobbed. He kissed her over and over. You did it. My God, you did it. The nurse turned. Would Dad like to cut the cords? He could barely breathe, but he nodded. With trembling hands, he cut the ties that bound the babies to her body and began the journey of becoming bound in a different way forever. They placed the babies in Celeste's arms, two perfect bundles, one with his eyes, one with hers. Roman knelt beside the bed and cried without shame, because this was what he'd never known he needed. Family. The rain had stopped, but inside the private recovery suite, the world remained hushed, wrapped in the kind of stillness that only followed something miraculous. Celeste slept lightly, her face turned toward the window, cheeks flushed with exhaustion and peace. The babies were swaddled in soft ivory blankets, two nestled in the bassinet, beside her bed, and one, tiny, warm, and awake, cradled against Roman's chest. His hand trembled as he held the child, not out of fear, but awe. He stared down at the face, resting against his heartbeat. A daughter, a son, another son. 3 lives, all impossibly small, impossibly real. He hadn't known how it would feel. To hold them, to feel his own breath change because theirs had begun. The nurse stepped in. They're all healthy, full term and strong. It's rare, but she did it. Roman nodded. She's always been stronger than anyone gave her credit for. He looked at Celeste then. Still, radiant, even in sleep. She'd brought 3 souls into the world like a warrior queen wrapped in silk. He turned to the nurse. Can I hold all 3 at once? She smiled. Let me help. Minutes later, Roman sat in the soft corner chair with 1 baby in each arm and the third lying against his chest. It took a moment to settle them, but when he did, something inside him clicked into place. The boardrooms, the luxury towers, the silent empires he'd built, none of it compared to this. My kingdom, he whispered, voice breaking. Right here. Celeste stirred, opened her eyes, saw him, and smiled. Are you okay? She asked, her voice hoarse. He chuckled softly. No, I'm undone. She tilted her head. Is that regret I hear in your voice? It's something stronger than regret, he said. It's reverence. She blinked away sudden tears. He rose carefully and brought the babies to her, laying them beside her on the bed. I've been thinking, he said. She raised an eyebrow. I want us to name them together, he said, but I'd like to start. Celeste nodded, biting her lip as she looked down at the 3 perfect faces. Roman touched the little girl's cheek first. Aurelia. For the light she already brings. Celeste gasped, then smiled. Yes. She's our golden one. Then he pointed to the smallest boy, the one who had been tucked against his chest the longest. Soren. He was quiet, but strong, just like you. Celeste pressed her hand to her mouth, nodding, tears running freely now. Roman looked at the third, and Cassian. For his fire, her voice broke. They're beautiful. He kissed her forehead. So are you. The nurse came in to record the names. Roman stood beside the window, staring out over the Miami skyline. The world didn't feel cold anymore. He turned to Celeste. I want their names to be written in places I once only wrote profit margins. She frowned. What do you mean? I mean, every trust fund, every estate document, every legacy clause, everything gets updated. Effective immediately. And me? She asked, not as a test, but a whisper of old wounds resurfacing. He crossed the room in 3 strides, took her face in his hands. Your name, Celeste Moreau, is already carved into every part of me, but tomorrow I make it legal. I want the world to know whose queen brought this kingdom into existence. Later that night, after nurses had taken the babies to the nursery, Roman crawled into the narrow hospital bed beside her. Celeste laid her head on his chest. "I thought you'd panic," she said softly. "I did. You hid it well." "No," he replied, kissing her temple. "I hid nothing. You were just braver." She traced his collarbone with her finger. "You don't have to be perfect, Roman." "I don't want to be," he replied. "I just want to be present. For them. For you." He tightened his arms around her. "I used to think power was the ability to command a room," he whispered. "But it's not. Real power is this." She nodded against him. "Love." He smiled. "Exactly. Love that wakes you up at 3 a.m. Love that smells like baby lotion and sounds like 3 heartbeats instead of 1. Celeste laughed quietly. "You're a poet now?" "For them?" He said, "I'll learn any language." The penthouse felt different. Not because it had been redecorated, but because the energy had shifted. Instead of silence, there was the soft hum of a baby monitor. Instead of cold, impersonal decor, there were pastel blankets draped over, couches, and a new bassinet tucked into the corner of the master bedroom. Celeste stepped through the door first, her arms wrapped protectively around Aurelia. Roman followed, Soren resting on his chest, while a nurse assistant carried Cassian in a car seat behind them. The space that once felt vast and empty was now filled with life. Celeste walked toward the nursery Roman had renovated. The walls had been repainted in warm shades of cream and honey. Handmade mobiles hung above each crib, each one personalized with their names. She placed Aurelia gently down and whispered, "Welcome home, my love." Roman came in next, eyes scanning the room. 3 cribs, 3 babies. And somehow, he wasn't overwhelmed. He was enchanted. An hour passed. Then 2. The sun dipped below the horizon. They were just about to take a breath when it began. First, Soren, a hungry wail, high-pitched and demanding. Then Cassian joined in, louder, more dramatic. Roman looked at Celeste wide-eyed. "Which one do I grab?" "All of them," she laughed breathlessly. And just like that, they were thrown into the whirlwind. Soren wouldn't latch onto the bottle. Cassian kicked off his swaddle and peed on Roman's shirt mid-diaper change. Aurelia, content moments ago, now screamed because she'd been left out. Roman ran from the changing station to the warming bottle to the bassinet like a man in a heist film. Celeste, half laughing, half crying, tried to soothe 2 babies at once. "Why does it feel like we're running a triathlon?" she asked, hair falling into her eyes. "Because we are," Roman replied, holding a diaper upside down. "I thought I managed million-to-dollar mergers, but this is high-to-stakes negotiation." Later, after all 3 babies were asleep, briefly, they collapsed onto the couch. Roman had spit, up on his shoulder, and a burp cloth tucked into his waistband. Celeste was wearing one of his shirts and no pants. And yet, they had never looked more like a team. She leaned into him. "This is the real thing, isn't it?" He looked down at her. "The most real thing I've ever known." Then, as if summoned by the peace, Cassian began to cry again. Roman stood. Celeste reached out. "I can get—" "No," he said, lifting the baby gently. "Let me try something." He walked over to the nursery and cradled Cassian in his arms. Then, he did something she hadn't expected. He began to sing. It wasn't smooth. His voice cracked halfway through the first line. He was off-key and barely remembered the lyrics. But he sang, softly, earnestly, somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue. Cassian blinked up at him, stared, and quieted. Celeste stood in the doorway, hand over her heart, watching this man, this once imposing tycoon, hum a lullaby in the dark, swaying with their child as if the world outside didn't matter. It didn't, not tonight. Eventually, Cassian fell asleep again. Roman laid him down with gentle precision and returned to the living room. "Don't judge me," he said, flopping beside her. "I was a theater kid for like 5 minutes in high school." Celeste giggled, curling into him. "You're perfect." "No, I'm not," he replied, eyes serious now. "But I'm present. And that's what matters, right?" She nodded, stroking his chest. "Yes. That's what matters." As the city glowed outside their windows, they curled into each other. No grand declarations, no boardroom battles. Just a man, a woman, and the children they'd created, learning, fumbling, growing. Together. The morning mist curled around the glass balcony like a whispered promise. Beyond the city skyline, the horizon slowly bled into gold, soft, unhurried, and alive. Celeste stood barefoot in Roman's robe, one hand curled around a mug of chamomile tea, the other resting on her abdomen, now soft, tender, and healing. The babies were asleep. For now. Roman emerged quietly behind her, dressed in a black long-sleeve Henley and pajama pants. His hair was tousled, face still carrying the raw exhaustion of new fatherhood, but his eyes, soft, clear, present. She turned toward him. "You made coffee?" He held up the mug. "It's probably cold already. Got distracted, watching you." Her smile bloomed slowly. "You always know what to say. Only when I mean it." They stood together, the silence between them heavier than words, yet warm. Celeste set her mug down. "So," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "we never did it." Roman arched a brow. "Did what?" She looked up, eyes gleaming. "The vows." His breath caught. She continued. "There was no wedding, no chapel, no walk down the aisle. We signed a contract, not a promise." Roman stepped closer, cupping her cheek. "Then let's fix that." He reached for her hand and guided her out onto the balcony. The sky was breaking open in colors, rose, amber, pale lavender. The wind kissed their skin. No audience, no flowers, no altar, only them. Roman took a breath. "Do you want to go first?" Celeste nodded. She swallowed, heart trembling behind her ribs. And then she began. "I was broken when I met you. Not because I was weak, but because I had trusted people who didn't see my worth." Roman's jaw tightened. She went on. "I thought marrying you was surrender, that giving my body to someone I barely knew meant losing myself forever." Tears filled his eyes. "But instead, you held space. You challenged me, protected me, respected me, even when I didn't believe I deserved it." She stepped closer. "I vow to never forget who I was before I met you, and to honor who I've become with you." She placed his hand over her heart. "I promise to fight with you, not against you. And when storms come, I won't run. I'll stay." He let out a shaky breath, then lifted both her hands into his. "My turn." His voice cracked. "When I first saw you, I thought you were an obligation, a desperate decision, a quick solution." Celeste's eyes glistened. "I didn't expect your voice to haunt my nights, your courage to make me question everything, or your strength to break through walls I didn't even know were still up." He pulled her closer. "You made me want to be better, not because you asked, but because you deserved it." His forehead rested against hers. "I vow to never let power, pride, or fear speak louder than your voice. I vow to hold your hand when it's hard and kiss your soul when it's quiet." He pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. "Whatever storms come, we stay." They didn't need rings, or an officiant, or an audience. Their eyes said it all. Their bodies leaned into the vows, grounding them in presence. And their lips met, not with urgency, but with reverence. A seal, a prayer, a home. Later, they lay side by side on the couch, babies sleeping in the nursery. Cassian let out a little grunt in his sleep. Roman grinned. "He takes after you." Celeste shook her head. "That boy's stubbornness is all you." Soren shifted, fists curled against his cheeks. And Aurelia sighed softly, her chest rising in rhythm with the night. Roman took Celeste's hand again. This time he didn't speak. He didn't need to. She was already home. The bar hadn't changed. Same worn leather booths. Same jazz piano humming low in the corner. Same warm gold lighting casting everything in soft sepia. But the man at the corner seat had. Roman Blackwood sat where he had once watched a stranger walk in with. Nothing but fire in her eyes and a backpack clutched like armor. Tonight, he waited again. Only this time, his heart didn't pace with uncertainty. It settled in anticipation. The bartender nodded. "Old-fashioned?" Roman gave a half smile. "Make it neat. No need to hide it." He checked his watch, then looked up. She walked in wearing red, a dress that hugged her like a second skin and shimmered every time she passed beneath the golden light. Her hair was down, lips painted soft rose, eyes alert, like they always had been. But there was a peace to her now, a glow that wasn't just from the dress. Roman stood. Celeste smiled as she approached, her heels clicking softly over the floor. Didn't think I'd let you have the final word, did you? She teased. He leaned in, kissing her cheek. Never once. They sat, together this time. Outside the wide glass window, the stroller rested under the canopy. 3 little heads tucked beneath soft blankets. Soren stirred, then stilled. Cassian mumbled something in his sleep. Aurelia kept her grip tight on the edge of her plush giraffe. Roman looked out at them, then back at her. How are they still asleep with your heels clicking like thunder? Celeste laughed. They know Mama's not far. She studied him. Same bar, same seat, same man? He shook his head. No. He said softly, that man thought love was a transaction. That power meant control. That loneliness was strength. She reached across the table, laced her fingers through his. And now? He turned her palm over and kissed it. Now I know love means surrender, power is protection, and strength is showing up even when you're afraid. She exhaled like she'd been waiting to hear that for a year. Maybe longer. The waiter brought their order. Simple, nothing fancy. 2 drinks, a shared plate. Celeste tore a piece of bread and passed it to him. Do you remember what you said to me that night? He smirked. Which part? The one where you told me I'd last 6 months before you bought me out of the marriage. Roman winced. Wow, I was such a bastard. You were... She raised her glass. To contracts, that got rewritten. He clinked it gently. To the red dress that made me lose my mind. And the man who came back for his soul. They didn't talk about the storm, or the pain, or the tears that stained hospital sheets. They didn't have to. It was all in the silence between sips. The glances that said, we've seen the dark, and we stayed. Roman glanced again at the stroller. 3 babies, in under a year. I still can't believe it. You still look terrified. I am. Of messing it up, of not being enough. She leaned over and kissed him, slow, warm, full of calm. You're already more than enough. The piano shifted to a softer melody. A song Roman didn't recognize, but Celeste did. She stood, holding out her hand. Dance with me. In a bar? In our bar? He didn't hesitate. He followed her onto the small open space near the corner, tucked away from view. She folded into his arms easily, like her body had memorized the fit of his. They swayed, no rhythm, just presence. His mouth brushed her ear. You still take my breath. She whispered back. You gave it back to me. Outside, the city yawned into midnight. People passed by the window, not knowing the love unfolding inside, not knowing that a story had started here with strangers, and bloomed into something untouchable. When the baby stirred again, Celeste kissed Roman's jaw and said, Time to go. He paid, tipped the bartender extra, then followed her out. The twins were fussing. Cassian was hungry. Aurelia just wanted to be held. Roman scooped her into his chest and whispered, Hey, Daddy's here. Celeste slid a bottle from the side pocket and began feeding Soren. Cassian promptly spit up on her shoulder. She laughed. Roman smiled like it was the most beautiful sound in the world. They walked off down the street. No fanfare, no applause. Just 2 people, 3 babies, and the quiet knowledge that love, real love, is earned, one sunrise at a time. Morning light spilled through the open balcony doors, casting golden warmth across the bedroom floor. The air smelled of soft lavender and baby lotion. One of the triplets let out a tiny grunt from the nursery next door, followed by silence again. Celeste lay in bed, Roman's shirt draped over her shoulders like a second skin. It was faded now. Washed so many times it felt like memory itself. She held the edge of the collar to her lips, breathing in the comfort it brought. Behind her, Roman stirred. His hand reached instinctively, finding her waist beneath the covers, then sliding across her belly in the lazy, claiming way he always did when half asleep. You're staring at the ceiling like it's about to answer you, he mumbled into her shoulder. She smiled. I was just thinking, dangerous. Celeste turned to face him. Her hair fell across her cheek, the morning light painting her in soft golds. Her lips parted slightly. If I had to do it all over again, she said slowly. Roman blinked off the rest of sleep, watching her with full attention now. She didn't pause. I'd still say yes. The silence that followed was deep, not empty. Full. Roman swallowed, then sat up slightly, propping himself on his elbow. Even after the pain? Yes. The chaos? Yes. The man I was before I knew how to love you? Celeste nodded. Especially then. Roman's eyes were darker now, not with sorrow, but with something heavier, something humbled. He leaned in, his forehead against hers. Then I'd still promise never to let you go. Their breaths mingled in that quiet space. Outside, the world moved. But in here, just heartbeats, whispers, and the kind of promise that doesn't need rings or ceremonies to be real. Roman's fingers brushed along her arm. Sometimes I think about that day in the bar, he said. You were fire, untouchable. Celeste grinned. I was starving and angry. He laughed. And still, you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. She traced his jaw with the back of her hand. I didn't know if I could trust you. I didn't know if I could trust myself. But we grew. We became. He leaned in and kissed her. Not with urgency, with reverence. Then he whispered, let's raise them right. Let's show them what love looks like. Celeste's voice caught. And if they lose their way? He pressed his lips to her temple. They'll always know where home is. Outside the room, a soft cry broke the quiet. Aurelia. Celeste groaned and buried her face into the pillow. Your turn. Roman threw off the blanket dramatically and stood, shirtless, hair wild. My kingdom calls. He disappeared down the hallway with exaggerated determination, and moments later, soft humming echoed back. Celeste watched the ceiling again. This time, it didn't need to answer. She already had everything. The nursery was still. Soft nightlight glow danced against the pale walls, casting gentle shadows of the stuffed. Bears, cloud mobiles, and the names written in elegant script above each crib. Aurelia. Soren. Cassian. Roman stood barefoot on the padded carpet, shirt open at the chest. One. Baby nestled in each arm, the third against his chest in a carrier. He rocked slowly, rhythmically, as if the act itself was part of some sacred ritual. Outside, the rain tapped the windows like a lullaby. Inside, nothing moved but his hands and the rise and fall of his chest. Celeste stood at the doorway, arms crossed lightly, her heart so full she could barely breathe. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She just watched. His lips moved as he hummed quietly, a soft off-key tune she recognized as the lullaby her grandmother used to sing. The same one Celeste had sung the first night they brought the babies home. Roman hadn't known the words, but he learned the melody, by heart. He didn't see her at first, not until Cassian stirred and let out a breathy whimper. Roman looked up, and their eyes met. For a moment, they didn't speak. Then he whispered, I think they know my heart now. Celeste's voice cracked. They've known it longer than you think. He smiled, soft and tired. You think I'm doing okay? She stepped inside, walked slowly toward him. You're doing more than okay. You're their everything. He shifted slightly, letting her press a kiss to Soren's cheek, who let out a sleepy sigh in response. They stood there for a while, him holding their children, her holding him. The woman who once walked into a bar broken and hungry. The man who thought love made you weak. And the three tiny souls who redefined them both. I never knew peace could be this quiet, Roman whispered. Celeste traced her fingers over Aurelia's hair. Sometimes the best kind of love is the one that doesn't shout. It just stays. Roman leaned his head against hers, three babies wrapped between them like truth. Do you think we made it? He asked. Celeste looked around the room. At the family they built from nothing but chance and choice. At the walls that once echoed only silence, now filled with lullabies and baby coos. At the man who once hid behind contracts but now wore vulnerability like armor. She nodded. Yes, we made it. If you felt the warmth of these words and the magic of this space, don't let the journey end here. At Love and Twilight, every story, every reflection, and every shared moment is created with the hope of inspiring your heart and reminding you of life's simple, timeless beauty. By joining our community, you become part of something more than just a channel. You become part of a family that believes in love, kindness, and the glow that Twilight leaves behind. So take a step closer, subscribe, like, and share with those who could use a little light in their lives. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story meant to touch your soul. Together, let's keep creating moments that heal, inspire, and remind us all that love is the language the heart never forgets. Roman moved toward the triple crib setup and carefully laid each child down, one by one. Aurelia curled toward her brother. Soren reached out a tiny fist. Cassian's mouth twitched into what could only be described as a sleepy smirk. Roman covered them with the soft, knitted blanket, then turned off the lamp. In the hallway, Celeste reached for his hand. They didn't go back to bed right away. They went to the balcony, just like they did the morning of their vows. Only now, no words were needed. Roman wrapped a blanket around both of them and pulled her close. The storm had passed. The night was calm. And in the cradle of silence, the love they'd built held everything steady.